What is up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Phil Sarpon. This is Phil's Guide to PsyD. This channel is dedicated to all things psychology, wellness, and graduate school. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Mark Skelton. He is someone that I actually connected with last year. He reached out to me via Instagram. He was actually looking for neuropsychology videos, and he stumbled upon my channel, and he sent me a message basically about how he was looking for neuropsychology and how he had a podcast. And we actually ended up connecting on the phone, and he invited me out to do a episode with him on his podcast. And so it was just a great conversation. Loved it. Talked about psychology, talked about neuropsychology. And so, as you guys know, this year I'm trying to bring in a lot more guests to come in and just give you guys different perspectives about psychology. So I thought, what better person to come out than Mark Skelton? So Mark Skelton is a mental health professional. He's also has been an advocate for over 10 years. So he has over 10 years of experience in the mental health services. This actually includes working with addictions, adolescents, brain training. He is actually also specialized in EMDR. He's worked in hospitals, private practice. He's done sexual offense treatment, worked with special needs. And as I mentioned before, he also has a podcast called the Skelton Report, where he discusses various topics on mental health and psychology, and has a line of e-courses available for purchase on Udemy. I'll be sure to make sure to link down all of the links in the description below so you guys can check out his podcast. But he also has a Master's of Arts in Clinical Mental Health Counseling from the Christian Theological Seminary. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Indiana University, Purdue University, IUPUI, which is crazy because there was a point in time where I actually went to that school and took a couple of years. So small world. But as I mentioned before, he also is trained in EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is an evidence-based approach of addressing trauma. He has prior credentials in credential sexually abusive youth clinician and has experience as a cognitive brain trainer at Leading Reactions. Currently, Mr. Skelton is pursuing a doctorate of clinical psychology PsyD at Kansas City University of Medicine and Biosciences. He's also a member of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. President of KC Associations of Black Psychologists student chapter at KCU.
Let's go.
All right. So Mark, what is going on, man? How are you doing?
Doing all right. Hey, I paid him to say all that. No, y'all know I like to have fun, man. I love to have fun. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing great, dude. New year. Me and my wife celebrated 8 years. You know, kids are doing good. We're COVID free. I know me and you spoke a little bit over the break. Sounds like you're doing good. Kind of, hitting the ground running with another semester and block. Maybe if we get a chance to maybe talk about it a little bit. God's been good. I got approved for the dissertation to get started with that. And so I'm not complaining. I'm busy, but things are good this way.
Man.
And you know what? I'm humbled, bro, to be on the podcast. So I appreciate you allowing me to be on here. This is a great, Phil, you're a great guy, man. So I appreciate it.
Yo, first of all, I was going through your bio, man. I'm like, dude, this man has an impressive resume.
No sleep.
I had to get on the podcast, man. So thank you so much again for being here. Just to kind of start off with, I would love to know a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and what got you interested in psychology? What was the thing for you that you decided to major in psychology in college?
Yeah. So the hometown's where the heart is. It's Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, which was kind of cool to learn. You got a connection with Indiana too. When I learned from the area code. So 317. That's where just born and raised. Two-parent household. My brothers. Life was cool, man. Basically, my dad was a chemist. He was a black chemist. And so I thought basically doing that when I went to college. Now, I wasn't really big into like, what am I going to do when I grow up? I was just kind of like following the flow, right? And then I did chemistry for a little bit. And it was a challenge, bro. It was a challenge. But it was cool. It was something I think I wanted to do because my dad was doing it. And bless his heart, my late father, he's passed. Basically I went into that. And then what I did, and this is what I encourage anybody that's listening, if you're doing the school thing, and you could probably relate to this, is I did an internship where I did, which it was a good internship. It was a chemical company, paid great. It was over the summer, but it was at that point when I realized, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to be doing this for the rest of my life, right? And then so from there, it was tough, kind of, you got family influences, you invest a lot of time and money in a certain like track, but I decided to go psychology because I was a social person. I like empowerment. Church is definitely involved in that. And it just made sense after meeting with like an academic advisor, like, what can I do? And I think I knew I didn't want to stop at the bachelor's level. Like I knew I wanted to go on to the doctorate level. So all that was calculated in that choice in undergrad.
Okay. All right. No, okay. That's really cool. It's kind of cool just to hear people's journey and how they like decided on psychology and decided to go on. Reading your bio, it shows that you've been in the field for over 10 years. And so I guess for you, like, what was the timing for you to decide to go back and get your doctorate? You mentioned that was kind of always on the table, but why specifically now, I guess?
Right. Let me share this piece too, because for some people it may help them, because I know it would help me back. It took me 7 years to get the bachelor's, bro. Like they call that the victory laps. Like I had victory laps, you know what I mean? And some of it was taking time off. I had to pay for a semester too. So some of it was the struggle. Some of it was just clowning around, not getting the grades I needed. But eventually, changing major. So I got it in 7 years. And then from there, I went into a master's program. And that was a school at Butler. It wasn't Butler. It used to be Butler's theological school, but it was its own now. It's a Christian theological seminary. So I didn't necessarily go there for the seminary teaching, but for the idea of like spiritually integrated psychotherapy. And I like that concept of tying spirituality into the counseling room. And so I learned that there. And then I also learned a lot about psychodynamic approaches and different therapeutic approaches. And that program took about 4 years. So it was in the mix of that when you start learning what you can do with the degree. And so I think it's good for people to know too, like there's different certifications and licensures and education that you need. Like a psychiatrist isn't this, this is where I'm learning this. A psychiatrist isn't the same as a psychologist. A psychologist isn't the same as a master's level clinician. They all can do therapy, but they all kind of do it at their own level. So for me, I went after graduating. Once again, man, like my wife always says, tell God your plans and he's going to laugh at it. Like he's going to have his plans for you. So like after I got married in the midst of the program and the master's, I had children, and then I'm working. And then, so I had that's where I got a lot of my experience of like residential, working with families, working with DCS, substance abuse, just trying to grind, taking care of the family, taking care of my own. And then I would almost say I was going to wait a little bit until I got fully licensed before going back to school because I had children. But like I said, I think God has his own plans. And a relationship that I stay connected with professionally at IUPUI, Dr. Durkins, I actually did an interview with him too. He reached out to me here in Kansas City and said, hey, we got a new PsyD program. And the timing was right. Like the timing was right. I took the GRE. Everything happened the way it needed to. The interviews went great. And then I basically landed out here in 2020, and that's when I got started. So does that answer your question? I know it's like
no, yeah,
life is like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not always like linear, sometimes things
right.
happen, and so you kind of have to go with the flow and be flexible. But I mean, I think that's really cool. I think when we talked, you mentioned that you're a second-year PsyD student. And so that means that both of us went into because I'm a second-year PsyD student as well. So we both started the program in 2020, right? Which is where COVID was going on. There was a lot going on in that year. And it's been so interesting because I've talked to other students about their programs. Some people have been virtual courses. Some people have taken hybrid courses. But like for you, starting your program, like what was that like for you with COVID? and figuring that out? Were you guys hybrid? Were you guys virtual? Were you guys in person? Like, what was going on in your mind during that time?
It was so first, it was an adventure, first of all. It was an adventure because, as you know, I think COVID came in right towards the end of 2019, right? 2019, yeah. So that's when it was like starting to get on the scene, and I saw it in the news, and it's like, what is this thing? And then that's kind of when I was taking my tests too, and I'm communicating with Dr. Durgans, and the application process was going on. I'm working. My wife is pregnant. Okay. So it was like, you know, all this, I'm interviewing. I don't know basically what's going to happen. Like, you're waiting for decisions, your lease for where you're living, like all this had to be coordinated. Right. Yeah. So anybody, if you're going through things, just stay encouraged. And then basically I got the decision, and then that I was accepted. I was like, thank God. So we actually did the interviews virtually because it's in a different state. And then, so some people did it on site, but by this time, you know, COVID was really starting to get real. And then like people are starting to shut down a little bit. So I did the interview virtually. And then from there was even a discussion of like, are you guys going to move out here? Are we going to be virtual for the first block and all that type of thing? So I'm still kind of in a waiting period, but then I'm kind of closing down the cases and the people that I'm working with, and my wife's pregnant. So then basically I just got to share this with you. Like, we have our son, bro. Let me tell you that this is, so we're like, and think about it. Like, where we're going to have the baby. We're thinking about home birth or the hospitals, which is like, that's where the COVID's at, you know, that's where all that's going on. So we're just like praying, what are we going to do? He comes a week before we end up leaving. So we have the baby. I'm moving everything myself because, you know, we didn't want movers, COVID, you know, just got the dumpster, boom, 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 throw everything in there. We find out our move date. We have the baby, hop on the road a week later, and we're headed to Kansas City, dude. So like, that's kind of like the background. It's like, welcome to Kansas City, right? And then so from there, I did know, to answer your question, it was virtual. They made the decision to follow the science, and we did virtual for the first year.
Okay.
And so I don't know, is there any like questions in there, or kind of just continue? What you thinking?
I mean, yeah, like, was that, I mean, I'm sure that was a lot to deal with. And it's like,
it was a lot.
Because even when I talk to people in my cohort, like, you know, this is our first time in a doctoral program, but we're doing it hybrid because we were hybrid for a while, and then we were in person. But it's also like the faculty and the staff are also trying to figure it out too. So you got basically both groups, students and faculty, that are basically like winging it in a way, because they're this is all new for everybody. So it's a learning curve for sure.
It was a learning curve. Like, there was a lot of communication going on,
right?
And a lot of moving parts. And then, so for me, since I had a master's, since we kind of talked about that already, like I come in with what they call advanced standing, which just means like, I got a year off, thank God. So that's like less loans, because I got to pay for this with the loans, man. So, but either way, that means for me, I had to start at the practicum sites the first year. So that was another part of this. Like, I'm sending out those cover letters, trying to get interviews to. They don't know where my site's going to be at. It just depends on who wants to do the interview. Are they going to be in person, or is it going to be virtual? So that's going on. But I know for the first year, we did virtual. And I think I talked to you about this as well, having the young children. That was another piece. It's like, man, do we send them into these schools? We don't know what's going on. So we just decided to do homeschool. We did a little bit of that back home anyways before COVID. So we knew how to do it, the online thing. So that was a blessing. But dude, it was cabin fever in there. It was like I told you, it was intimate. Like, we got all these, like, my wife was working from home. I'm school, kids are there, nowhere to go. We're in a new land. I'm trying to study. So it was a lot. He kept us together, but we had a successful year. And I think it was more like a juggling and a balancing act for that first year. Mm-hmm.
I got you. Yeah, no, that's real, man. It's cool because, you know, thinking about your experience, you specifically want to be like a neuropsychologist? Is that something?
Yeah.
Like, okay, gotcha.
But that's something I didn't realize until I came in this program and learned what's available, which we could probably talk about when you want to.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that totally makes sense. And so I guess even for yourself, right? You're in your second year of the program. Basically, I mean, for those who are not sure about what a PsyD program looks like, usually it's 4 years of classes, and then the fifth year is the internship, and then
Right,
you might have to work some time to get the postdoc or to get the licensure and stuff like that.
right.
So for you, have you thought about like where you want to be in terms of like 10 years from now? Like what population do you want to work with? What specific neuropsychology conditions, neurological conditions do you want to work with? Is that something that you thought about?
Yeah, so I haven't got it nailed down all the way, but like my therapist taught me, like I'm moving in a certain direction. I know it's somewhere in this arena. So if I could back up a little bit, basically, and I'm gonna get to your point, is when I was doing the master's work, I was doing more, talk therapy, counseling, talk therapy. I did not know that testing was an option, basically. Didn't know too much about it. I knew a little bit about psychiatry and medication, and that's what psychiatrists do, but not too sure what did the psychologists do that sets them apart. And that's something that was made clear to me when I got into this program, is that psychologists, one of their niches are testing, right? And so when I learned about that, I was like, that's kind of interesting. I had a little bit, like on a way smaller scale. It's not testing exactly, but with that brain trainer piece that I told you about, it's like this idea of like going through a regimen, skills with an individual, doing exercises to help strengthen certain areas of the brain, right? So I kind of had a little experience in that, but to me, that attracted me a lot. And just the EMDR piece, which me and you've talked about a little bit, it opened me up to like, oh, there is a biological basis to healing or treatment. And so that I like that part of it too. And then so now that I'm here, I think long term, I guess, so now to answer your questions, and now it's coming clear on what I want to do. I definitely want to do testing and neuropsychology because as I mentioned, my father passed, and like he passed from a stroke. So there's other reasons why I'm interested in the brain piece of it, like that rehabilitation that can happen afterwards. I know neuropsychologists can play a role in that. Oh, it looks like was you going to speak to something? It looks like it.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, when because I know we talked about the EMDR thing, and I can really see how like the neurological connections of that for someone who has never heard of EMDR. What's like the easiest? How would you explain it to them in terms of if they've never heard of it, or they have heard of it but they're not really sure what it is?
Gotcha. Okay, so basically, it's evidence based. That means it has a lot of research to support its effectiveness in that it works. And it basically uses bilateral stimulation, and that's a $50 word for using both sides of your brain. All right, to contribute to the healing process. And there's a whole training that you have to do, but basically it really works with trauma, and they've learned it worked with other areas. So basically it really discharges that emotional charge that you may have to a particular trauma, and the trauma symptoms that come with that, like dreams or avoidance, or the physiological responses that you have, like the nervousness, or the the heart, blood beating, all of that type of stuff. So what it does is it taps into the negative belief that you picked up from a particular trauma, and what it does is it puts more language to it. So more of that left side of the brain, like rational side. Left, I say L, logic. Left is your logic side, and right's more the abstract and the emotional side. As you know, it's way more complex than this. But just to kind of make it simple, like basically it taps into those brain networks to kind of chill you out, so that you can think about the trauma a little more logically than opposed to where you were emotionally when it happened to you.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think that's a great explanation. So even for you becoming a neuropsychologist, is that something that you still want to do? Like, are you still wanting to do fully neuropsychology, or kind of do a little bit of both with the EMDR, the therapy, and then a little bit of
Yeah, and you see him up here, Freud, I think he's right there. I love psychoanalysis, so I think no matter what, but I gotta, and you know what, we're gonna lift up Frantz Fanon too, a black psychoanalyst, I do love the work of therapy. I do love the work of counseling, getting deep, unraveling things, working through. So I think irregardless of what I do, I would like to keep maybe a client or two and stay up on the readings and work with individuals. Cause it's just something that it's a love that I picked up in my master's program because they was like more psychoanalytic heavy. So I got it in a bad way. So that's there. But I think when it comes to like career wise, I would really be interested in potentially private practice work where I can tie in, especially within our community. So like if you're talking about like 5-year, 10-year plans, I want to work within our community because there's things we're suffering from Alzheimer's, and this COVID thing is bringing it more out that these underlying conditions that we have contribute to the strokes and some of the brain diseases that we have. Once again, like I said, Alzheimer's is a big one. I know that's hit my family as well too. And so it's just for me, I want to like learn the whole Moses, Harriet Tubman complex, learn as much as I can, bring it back to the community so that they can benefit from it too. And so I eventually, and that's why, and the church is in there too, because I know I've talked to you about that. And I want to somehow bring the church in it so that they can realize and bring down the stigmas that I think we all can benefit. People of color, people of faith, just anybody can benefit from mental health. And I've noticed that the stigma has been coming down a little more. And so I want to be an advocate in that. And I think that's what I'm doing now. And that's how me and you ran into each other. You're doing that. And some of it's more than just doing the work, but talking to people and educating them and informing them on what therapy is. And so I know that was a lot, but I mean, you get where I'm going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that because, sometimes people have asked me like why I even started the channel in the first place. And part of the reason why I started the channel is because I felt like when I was looking for the graduate school, pursuing a PsyD, that there weren't a lot of just information in general out there. And then the information that was out there, I didn't see a lot of representation in terms of people of color talking about mental health or people of color talking about clinical psychology. And so when I got into PsyD school, I was like, man, I'd love to, present some of that information to my friends and my family members. And it just kind of took off where now I get so many different questions of people who are interested in the field or who are also people of color themselves and who are wanting to, destigmatize mental health and also talk about mental health. And so I love for you, like how your background and your story is helping. You're trying to use your influence and your experience to better help your community. And I think that's something that's really, really, really cool. So I'm sure that in terms of like when you, I guess, see yourself going through your program, one of the other things that I've talked to people about is, I mean, I have a biased opinion with clinical psychology. Obviously, I love like my program, but it also has its challenges too. Mm-hmm. People to also understand, like when they are in college and they're trying to figure out if they should apply to PsyD school, perhaps a little bit about what those challenges might be. And so for you, are there any challenges that you would say, like, are there any things that for someone who's looking to be a clinical psychologist that you would tell them, okay, that's awesome, but I think you should also think about this too? Any challenges that you've gone through or you would want people to know about?
It's a loaded question, loaded. But I guess initially, this is kind of where my mind goes, is the last time I looked at the U.S. workforce statistic is that 5%, and I've harped on this a lot of times whenever I talk to someone. 5% of the active psychologist workforce are African American. Okay, so from our statistics class, I've known that another way of putting that is you can be 95% sure, 95% confidence interval that you're not going to get an African American provider, and that is that just basically needs to be changed. So for me, it's just, even if there are challenges, we got to get in here because we're the ones that have a lot of the as my work as a therapist, never had a time where it was like I couldn't get work because it's like, oh, this Black male needs help, or this family, the African American family needs referral because of that cultural piece and that's very important in the, you know what I mean? It's very important. The cultural piece is very important to be felt, to be heard, to be understood, to just know what it's like growing up in a Black person's house, right? Like, so from that, that's very important. So I think if anybody's listening, like, consider that and know that we need to change that a little bit. And that's why I support your work. And that's how we cross paths, is just getting the word out. I think the other thing is keeping an open mind. Just keep an open mind, because like for me, I didn't know about forensics. There's school psychologists, like there's so much. There's integrated health. You've put me on game about like the sports psychology and what arena that, you know what I mean? So neuropsych, like all these different areas you can go. So I think you should definitely keep an open mind, but you better like reading. And that's one thing I've learned. Hey, you got to do a lot of reading, sifting through articles, and you got to be motivated. And I think it's really good to make sure that you have. See, I think from what I'm learning, you can hear it in our conversation. It's more so the stuff that happens outside the classroom that kind of impacts you. For me, like, you need a good, strong support. I had like a very supportive launch pad where I came from. Even the agency I worked at before I came out here put money in my pocket, supported me, helped me get out here, talking to me throughout the years, keeping me supported, that type of thing. Families supported my wife, the children. So I think that's something that you need to consider. And I think maybe how you're going to pay for it, but I feel like maybe that's something you can worry about down the road. But those would be the biggest ones for me. Just keep an open mind, get in there and do it. We need the help. We need the help. We're thinkers. We're thinkers too. And just consider your support network around you, because what I'm learning, even us as minorities, we're a collectivistic community. And so that means, you're bro to me. Like, even I mean, what's up, bro? Like, all this. So you need that support around you. And I think that's very important.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, 100% agree. I think it's super cool. Like, when you do think about the pros and cons, and you can have a little bit more of an informed decision about what you're about to take, because it is a long path, right? It's not just a 2-year master's program. It's 4 years, the internship. So it's like 4, 5, 6 years potentially. And that's a long haul.
That's a long haul.
Like you mentioned, you want to have that support system. You want to make sure that you don't have to know everything about what you do in your life, because you're going to figure it out as you go through the program. But having that mindset and then the mentality to actually kind of keep you rooted, I think, is super important. And I know we talked about in your podcast a little bit about like the self-care aspect. And so some of the things that people can do as they go through grad school, as they prepare for grad school, to keep them grounded. And I think you already mentioned a little bit about the social community side for you and how that's important. A little bit about the spirituality aspect. I'd love to kind of go a little bit deeper into that. But like for you, what does self-care look like for you, whether it's with your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, or even all three?
Man. So, I mean, in no particular order, counseling. I know me and you talked about that. The first, so a little background for your audience. Like for me, in my master's program, I do go back there a lot. That was a very transformative time period for me. But they required us to get therapy. And to validate, maybe people listening, therapy, didn't do that growing up. That wasn't even a thing, right? So for me, there was a little, I was going to get out of my comfort zone. But when I actually enrolled, because they weren't going to allow you to get therapy if you wasn't getting yourself. And so when I did that, I enjoyed it. It was, man, I didn't realize how much I had to say. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I like therapy. And it didn't even mean that you got to have because for me, it was a stigma of like, oh, you're crazy if you're going to therapy. You got a deep problem. Like there's something going on with you. And honestly, that's not even what therapy is about. It's just a place to vent, bounce ideas off if you need, work through some problems with an unbiased person who's kind of not so close to the situation. They can give you an objective vibe, and it's professional. I love the confidentiality of it. So I'm saying that to say, when I came out here, and I mentioned a couple of times, my dad was my hero. So he passed that same year of 2019. We also had another death on my wife's side of the family that was major. Like these are two heavy hitters in our household, like my dad and a grandma on my wife's side. So that was a lot. Then we moved out here, just had a baby. starting a program, I knew immediately, I'm like, hey, I just want to get the psychological services. Let me connect with the school counselor. And it's like, nothing like anything's wrong per se or really affecting, but I just knew having that there was going to be a good thing for me. Like, we're in the house, everything is kind of like, it's good to talk through. So I definitely did that. So anybody listening, get a counselor. I think that's a good thing to get. I'm trying to get a free workout plan from you, but if you could write one up for me, Phil, I need a.
I'll hook you up. I got you.
Yeah, so that's one thing. We got a gym nearby. I have to, like, for me, it's more than just looking good or fitness. It's releasing stress. Like, when you're studying and you're going through the grind, for me, The Body Keeps Score is a good book. I got that in the library. You already know, like, I need to be running. I need to be doing something that kind of releases that energy out of me. So that's a very helpful thing. Plus, it's good for the brain to go back there. It's really good for the brain. So I think working out is good. And then for me, and even if we kind of get in this conversation a little more, I know we talk about spirituality. Eating's good. You gotta eat good. And so I make sure I try to do that. And then I think a big piece, and I know you asked about, is the spirituality piece. Like, when we came from back home, had a very supportive church family, plugged into a great place. Because I know, for me, even my own experience, I know church hurt is real too. So, but when you get into a place that's loving and supportive, that can definitely help the family. So those were one of those groups as well that I mentioned helped launch us off, you know what I mean? And like, hey, celebrating us, come back, let's continue working together, let's stay in touch throughout the time. So that's been really helpful. But when we got out here, once again, I'm just in a new land, trying to play it safe. I got my family with me. Like, I love worshiping, but then it's like, do I run back out here? I don't really know what's going on. So I played it safe for a while, and I think it was about a year. But also with that, it's not the same, but it will do. But the virtual, so I stayed plugged in through virtual worship. But then recently, we found a good church home out here that's been supportive, and once again was a recommendation for back home in our network. And so for me, I think going, man, singing, bro, you know what I mean? Like, praying, getting encouragement from someone else too. Yeah, that to me, that's some self-care. And I was even my professor from this block was talking about the kind of the power. He was talking about it from a different angle, the power in like music and when you join together, and it's kind of this transcendent vibe. So it made me think about the congregational worship and singing and hearing a good word, bro, like that kind of lifts you up and lets you know, man, I'm not going through this alone. So I think for me, those are the biggest things, like getting some therapy, getting some counseling, like spending time with the family. You know what I mean? There comes a point in time where it's like, man, forget the studies. Let's just do something fun, do something crazy, whatever. Let's get out. Even if it's COVID going on, like, we're going to mask up. We're going to go do something. You know what I mean? Like, let's make it happen. Church, and then eating right and working out. I think those are like the biggest ones worth talking about.
Oh, man, that's really cool. I think so many times, sometimes people don't know where to start, with their self-care.
Yeah.
But I say, like, yo, just do what you love to do. Just try it out. And I think over time, even for me, like, I've been able to kind of tweak a couple things. I realized that, you know what, I love to read, and I see reading as a really big self-care thing for me. And so when I'm stressed out, I'm trying to just read a book and just chill and relax. And I didn't used to do that before, but now I do. And so it's like, you're definitely going to learn all of those different things as we go through life and stuff like that. But I think it's awesome that you have those core things that really keeps you rooted to help you with the stress, whether it's the physical side, the mental side, or the spiritual side. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. And actually, it's funny that you're saying that. I picked up mystery novels. That's something I kind of, because I love it. It's just a way to get away from everything that I'm doing, and it keeps me curious. It keeps me interested. And I go back to something when me and you talked the first time. I love what you said. Self-care is just something that you feel refreshed after doing. So it can be a walk, but it's whatever's specific to you. And these are things that make me feel, that's always stuck with me. I feel refreshed after doing them. So I think that was a good definition that you gave for what self-care is for those listening.
Yeah, no, for real, for real. Well, Mark, honestly, I love that. And I think everything that you've been talking about, right? Like your identity as a Black male, pursuing the PsyD field, already has worked in the mental health profession and things like that. And then your goals and your mindset with like how you want to give back to your community, I think is really, really cool. For anyone, I guess this is specifically for people of color, do you have any words of advice or encouragement for anyone that's actually a person of color, could be a Black man, Black woman, looking towards the profession, thinking about being in the mental health profession or working as a mental health professional?
I know I did a book review on Naim Akbar. I think me and you talked, Dr. Akbar, psychological change of slavery, breaking psychological change of slavery, and he presented a theory, and it was thought provoking, and it made you think about how things from the past, right? He calls it the ghost from the plantation. Man, that's deep. How it's still kind of messing with us today in the sense of some of the stuff that's happened in the past and how it could be like unconsciously carried on, and explain like, you know, maybe the community division that's happening today, or why we have lack of leadership and a lack of property and all that. He kind of draws it back to slavery. And then there's Dr. Joy DeGrosse, she's on here as well. Post-traumatic slave syndrome, all that. Like, so that's something in my mind. And I guess where I'm going with that is like, there's work to be done. There's work to be done. When you look at our community, I think there's work to be done, and what better way than to attack the mind on the mind realm, right? Because you can't do better till you know better. And when we look at that statistic again, the fact that we only have about 5% in the field, I think it speaks volumes. Like, we have so many low in the area in the arena that's going to help the mind, and we wonder why we do some of the things that we do. We need more, we need more thinkers in the field. To help the people, to help our people. So for me, I think if you're looking for a field to get involved in, once again, the stigmas I've noticed, and you can tell me or not if you agree, but I feel like the stigmas are starting to come down. Like, we're starting to realize there's a value, and like you even use the example, and we use it all the time. If you break your foot, bro, you're going to the doctor to get that helped. If you break your arm, you're going to get help, right? To a physician. So the fact is, we have these inner people, we have this inner man, the inner woman. When that person is injured through trauma or some sort, it's only a mark of intelligence, I think, to go get some help. Yeah. And with some of the research I'm learning too, there's a lot of disparities. There's challenges that we have. There's sometimes we're misdiagnosed. There's mistrust with the healthcare field, and for justified reasons. I think if we get in the field, I think we can bring down some of that. I think we could definitely bring down some of that and make people feel comfortable and feel connected for a healing process. Because what has been done to us didn't happen overnight, and I don't think it's going to change overnight. So we gotta roll up our sleeve and think more generationally for the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, no, I like the way that you put it, especially in terms of looking at it from a long-term perspective of like,
for sure,
every day, you put in the work. And I think it even starts with ourselves, right? It even starts with me. Like, I know for me, my therapy journey started a couple of years ago. And initially, like, I wasn't really telling a lot of people. Like, I kind of felt the stigma on myself in terms of like kind of keeping it from people. And now just being more open about it, like, if someone says, hey, I got a doctor's appointment next Tuesday, I can easily say, well, I got a therapy appointment next Saturday. You know what I mean? And just realize to where it's like, yeah, this is something, just like I take care of my physical health, I also take care of my mental health. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And in fact, it should be applauded that people can look at their health from holistic perspectives and get the help that they need. And so I truly love how you kind of put it in terms of even the Black community and being the one to kind of help each other out. And also, the percentage that you talked about is really crazy, because the fact that it's 5%, of Black psychologists. But then I was trying to look the other day about the percentage of that were like actually men, like Black men.
Double minority.
Yeah, that particular percentage is even smaller, and so it's crazy to think, like, even being in my program and you know, being a minority as a man, but also being a minority as a black man. There's these I think things for me that I have to kind of just be open about and talk about, but also hopefully, like, I think there's excitement in knowing that I can serve a community that really needs the help too. So a lot of mixed emotions, but I totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, and some of with the dissertation and the things I've learned, and even an article I read yesterday, I think a good place to start would be community organizations, as well as, I know we talked about the church, like church leaders. I feel like if they become a lot more aware of the symptoms and kind of bridging that gap with more medical professionals, I think that's a good place to kind of work on this mental health piece, to encourage the referrals, to, you know what I mean, to note it and to encourage the conversation, to, and this is another word that you used last time that's used in a lot of counseling, normalize it. Hey, it's okay, this happens, and this is the protocol on how to deal with that. And I think with the church being kind of its role in our community, I think that's one of the many places where that can begin. I think so.
That's beautiful. No, that's beautiful. Well, you know, for you, I guess, kind of just to wrap it up, I know for you, 2022, for us, you know, it just kind of started. Is there any growths that you want to see for yourself? I've been going back and forth saying goals or growths. I think I like growths a lot better.
I like that.
You can, you know, goals, it seems more outcome oriented, right? I think growths is more of like an evolution and knowledge base. And so for you, any growths that you have for 2022?
Yeah, I just spiritually, what I throw in that is like meditation, prayer, you know, getting alone, self-development, that piece, that whole metaphysical piece, like that, I want to charge up in that area a little bit more, right? So that's one of those things where you don't reach a finish line. But that's definitely, I think that's very important. And I think this pandemic has contributed to that. Like you kind of slow down and you start thinking a little more. And that's actually one of the reasons why I got started with the social media stuff, because it's like you have more time on your hand. So I want to use that more positively. Academically, I'm looking, hopefully, pray for me, brother. Like I got the, what do you call that? Qualification exams coming up this summer. So I want to reach that candidate to be a doctoral candidate, because as of right now, I'm a student. So that's definitely one goal. And then also get some good headway on the dissertation, you know, keep working on that. That's going to be probably about a year and a half project. And then internship, like hopefully we'll get placed somewhere. I should know that by maybe December-ish of this year. So those are some ones. And then, you know, just small things like spend more time with the family, you know, goal balancing, be more effective with my time and stuff like that. But I think those are probably the major ones worth speaking on.
Yeah, no, I know that we talked about before about how, like, second year tends to be a lot going on. Like you're going through classes, you already started your practicum, so you're doing your clinical rotations. And then, like, even for me too, I'm thinking about my dissertation. I'm thinking about, we call it our comprehensive exam. So same thing, where you take a sit down test, it's like 200 questions or so. And then once you pass that, you become a doctoral candidate for your program. Okay. Very similar to you guys' program, but yeah, it's a lot going on, but I love your mindset behind it in terms of your growth and some of the goals that you have. I think for anyone that's listening in, trying to figure out if clinical psychology is for them, hopefully this video kind of gives you guys a different perspective on someone else that is going through their program and going through similar things. But it sounds like, dude, it sounds like you're really going for it, man. I'm really excited to see. Can you tell us a little bit about your dissertation? Do you have the topic already, or? Yeah,
well, you know how it is. You can only sprinkle so much out there, but basically it's going to deal with COVID-19. And I'm kind of glad you brought this up. If I could share some, I know you said share some of the handles and the stuff that I'm working on. Basically, I'm looking at COVID-19 spirituality in the African-American community. So I'm looking at those topics together. And for those listening, I'm actually starting like a dissertation topic journey for anybody that wants to kind of listen in and join in. And because for me, I didn't know what a dissertation was and how it worked. And there's a lot that goes into it. Like, you know, like IRB approvals, you got to propose, you got literature reviews. So for me, I'm asking anybody to join. I'm giving like little updates, documenting through like the Instagram and YouTube, and just sharing information. Like today, I shared on why are there so many disparities with COVID-19 in the African American community. So basically, I'm taking what I'm learning from my research and just kind of sharing it and just keeping people abreast of what's going on. And I learned a lot through that. So definitely check that out. I know you said I can probably provide that information to you. Yeah, like where to follow me at. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's awesome, actually, that you're making a journey that people can follow you as you go through it, as you go through the process. So
it's just for the people. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool. But just like you mentioned, where can people find you? Because I know we talked about the podcast, we talked about some of the things that you're doing. How can people reach out to you? Social media content.
So at Skelton_neuro, and that's Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And I'm doing like, even right now, I'm doing some EPPP study stuff. So right now it's focused on the brain. Just went over to cerebellum. So that's a little constant content to come out if you want to learn more about the brain and just areas of psychology and clinical psychology, and YouTube as well. And then, you know, all the major like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, that's where you can find the Skelton Report. And that's where I'm giving like more in depth on what I'm learning through my research. And then Udemy is where my like e-courses are at. And I have a free course for anybody that's interested, Depression for Minorities, because I know that's been growing recently, just to give people an idea for more of a textbook side of things, what depression is. So anybody's welcome to go check that out. And then there's some for purchase as well. Let's go.
Yeah. So for those who are listening in, I will definitely make sure to leave all of the links so you guys can check that out. Mark, it's been such a pleasure having you on the
show. All mine, bro.
It's so cool because I know, you know, sometimes even for me, like when I'm going through the program, I can feel a little isolated. Like I have my cohort and stuff like that, but it's so cool, like listening to other people also go through their program, and it kind of just motivates you. It inspires you that people are going through this journey from different experiences, but kind of together. And so thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience with the community. And I really look forward to seeing what you do with everything that you've got going on.
Can I share one last thing as we're closing out? Yeah. I want to take this opportunity to share with people, like me and you are modeling, I think, the behavior that's necessary in our community. Like I didn't know you from Adam, right? Like I'm searching out, I found you're African-American male in the field doing your thing. Hey, I want to lift you up. And I'm seeing that's kind of what you're doing for me. And I feel like, shoot, we get the blessings, God, the community gets the glory at the end. So like, I think that's very important that we support one another in this field. And I think that's what this is all about. And I just want people to understand that and take that to heart and to reproduce that in their own circles of influence.
Amen. That's so thank you. Yeah, no, thank you
for sure.
Yeah, for that. So that is all, guys. Thank you again. Cool. To see you guys in the next video. It's Mark Skelton. We'll see you guys later.
Cool.